What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm BDLM, coming to you with my buddy J4Y, bringing you episode number 73 of our Dota On Demand podcast. What is going on, man?
What's up, everybody? It's going well over here. Nice Tuesday evening, keeping it real on Tuesdays. So, getting back on schedule here. Hopefully, reliably until the next holiday throws us off once again. And it's unfortunate because you were just telling me this earlier, but it's another full week of work, and it's kind of hard to adjust to, actually having to be there 5 days of the week and actually deal with work every single of those days. So no Christmas parties, no, joyous company sleigh rides, none of that anymore.
Yeah, no, I just miss, baking cookies at work. Nobody knew about it. You just hide your Easy Bake under the desk. Pump out the
Sounds like a fire hazard, actually.
No, it's not, and it's totally legal, is the best part about it. But we'll miss the holiday cheer. Luckily, though, in this episode, we have a little bit left to give with some of the jokes from Mobius that we forgot to talk about earlier when it was maybe slightly more time appropriate. But for anybody that lives in the U.S., it is about 0 degrees everywhere, so I think that is definitely totally still legit dead of winter celebration. So it'll be great. And we have a really great episode. I think it's a fantastic topic, and it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Focusing on some of the unsung heroes of 6.79. Just looking at heroes that sort of have snuck into being a part of the metagame compared to 6.78. We had our Liches and our Venomancers who just all of a sudden were just like up there and a big part of what was going on. And then you have some of these heroes that are just sort of maybe a little bit more quiet, but have really made a much larger impact. Have shown up a lot more in the competitive scene, so we're going to be talking a lot about that tonight. But first, Jay, you have our Tuesday evening church announcements.
Yes, we are going to be meeting in the choir hall this week, actually, as it turns out. No, actually, I wanted to give a quick shout out to just Malachi306. Just wanted to say he's one of the viewers that just actually watched more recently than some others, but gave us some really great feedback, and I just want to just reiterate how real appreciative we are of you guys, just giving us these kind of feedbacks, letting us know that you really appreciate what we're doing. I was telling him, but, we're not really mainstream. There's a few podcasts out there. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us every week. And we really enjoy doing it. That's obviously why we've done 73 episodes. We wouldn't be here if it was just for popularity or fame. I mean, as much as I love, all the women and money I get from doing this job, we really do appreciate it. So I just wanted to say thanks for the kind words, sir. And hopefully we get a couple games in with you in the near future. We'll be sure to do that.
My favorite part of the comment was that he said he started watching since our hiatus, and my first thought was which one. But, that being said, we've been going strong pretty well here, my friend. For any of you longtime listeners, we've been a little dodgy on the nights of the week. We've been taking some vacation time. But, you know what? We've been going strong, and I appreciate you doing it with me every week, friend. I really do.
It's been good. No, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks a lot for the words. Also, it really is a great way we started this episode because we were saying how it's getting cold, ending all the holidays. It's sadly also the end of Wraithnight, I'm afraid. As of, I believe it was 1 or 2 a.m. this morning, or it was sometime within the past day or so, and they did shut it down and no longer playable. However, folks, those who did buy the favors for $1, you still have them active. That was converted to an 80% battle point booster. So you have that for the same duration. So they didn't let you just waste that 50 cents or whatever was remaining on that balance. That's pretty cool. Also, you haven't, I heard, until the end of the month to redeem your fragments. So there's still a tab where you can go in and get your rewards if you didn't spend them all in time. So, they had that thought out there for you. They didn't just shut you off dry. But, it's really cool. I feel like that just opened a gateway for a lot of people, and it kind of also gave us some insight of maybe what's to come. A map editor. I've seen screenshots of people making Pudge Wars. I don't know how this happens, because I don't even know how they access such a thing, but I've seen screenshots. I mean, I feel like it's coming. Maybe not immediately, but it's kind of giving us some insight. Maybe down the road, maybe next winter or something, we'll have like a map editor or something crazy and can go that much further with it. So I don't feel like this is a last goodbye either to this kind of thing.
No, and I appreciate too that it's so different than what we had for Halloween, the Dire Tide. I mean, it's the PvE thing. It's just a different element, and like you're saying with the map editor, I feel like it would almost be silly not to, because I mean, clearly Dota 2 is a celebration of what someone can do when they have tools to be able to make something and they dedicate time to it, what they can make. And obviously now we have this Dota 2 and its professional scene, and it's coming up across the world. And I'd be really shocked if there wasn't some sort of way to start making custom maps and be able to play them like that. And that's definitely something to look forward to. And even if we don't, I mean, clearly we're getting some fun stuff coming out of Valve. I would like to say, before the end of Wraithnight, we did get to beat Plus Plus. What's up?
Yes.
I'll pat myself on the back. Right here. It was awesome. We went to a LAN. We may have had to strap some people to their computer chairs to get them to play, but they did, and it was glorious. And Omni Knight may have had something to do with the victory, but
and Axe. Possibly those two heroes had a major component role.
I actually am sad to think of it now, but I almost want to have done a stream where we go to the viewers, we go to you guys, and we say, pick the worst heroes in Wraithnight, and we'll see how far we can get with them. And that would actually be
starting
a lot of
at
fun.
normal, because who knows if we can even get through that.
Yep. Juggernaut might not be the strongest of picks all the time. Beyond
hey, after
way
the
more
buffs, I'm just saying, he was a little more viable. Still horrible, but either way, you were right. We got through, and we actually, all of us had a booster, I believe, so it was like, we got like 12,000 of the shiny fragments or whatever each time we beat it. It was like, whoa, like this is a huge jump from just the plus, an extra 3,000 or 4,000. So, if you had the time, it would have been good. It's a little too late now to say, oh, you should do it, because obviously it's in the past. But no, it was great. We got to accomplish our task. We set out and we conquered. So, and unfortunately, I didn't get to finish my Tusk games at the LAN, but I'm only 2 off, guys. So I'm right there.
Oh.
I tell you, I'm right there. I'm not gonna tell you how I'm doing yet. I've kind of been giving you updates, but that'll come later, and I'll give you the final count of everything. But just letting you know, we're on the last few games of that track. So
yeah, and that'll be fun to talk about when we're finally finished going through those games. I've had a lot of fun in playing them. I know we've talked about it sort of on and off. I've sort of been not surprised by how well some of the games have been, but it's been nice seeing. It'll be nice to get to talk about.
all right, let's get into these Mobius jokes, because I gotta give this guy credit. When I first did the winter jokes back, I don't know, it was over a year ago, I think. It was a while ago. It was very spur of the moment, and it probably didn't take much time on him. I was pretty proud of maybe one of the 10 jokes I made, maybe one. And then the Easter jokes, let's just not go there, because it was just, I'm sorry you guys dealt with that, but these jokes made each of us laugh pretty decently. So I have to give him props to. Maybe he spent hours just sitting at a table with a quill pen, just scribbling over and trying to figure out each one, but most likely not.
Mobius, have you ever considered a profession in greeting cards?
Ooh,
Might be for you.
we're hiring joke writers. We play one game with you a month. That's how much we pay you. Yeah, so we'll coach you one game a month.
Because God knows we need the scripts.
No, we need them. I need some guidance. Everyone needs a joke writer. So, anyways, he's got 6 jokes here. So let's just jump into it. I'll do the dramatic pauses. Don't worry. I know how to present a joke. Trust me. So, number 1 here. I'm sorry. It's only 3. I might have lied. Let's do half of that for half's sake. What happens when the Dire team runs out of Christmas candy?
I don't know. What happens?
Pudge brings them a fresh heap.
Yeah. That was good.
All right.
I liked it better than your Skeleton King Resurrection Easter jokes.
It was too obvious, but I had to do that one. Come on. All right. Let's stay on focus here, okay?
Okay.
What do you? Oh God, those were so bad. What do you see on the ground during a team fight in an all Kunkka same hero match?
What?
X-Mass. Oh, Kunkka, you crazy guy.
I wish this was the first time I'd heard them so I could have a real reaction.
I know. It kind of ruined it for you. I shouldn't have read them too, but either way. Number 3, third and final. I'm not going to say both. What do Furion, Spectre, and Zeus all bring to a Dota game during Christmas?
What?
Global presents.
Oh.
Ah.
Christmas time jokes.
Those are beautiful
Mobius.
Mobius. Very nicely done. And 3 was enough. See, I didn't know how to stop. I just kept going. That was the perfect number. Each had a decent humor quality to it. So, you know what? Thumbs up to you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
And with that note, on this high note, you ready to actually get into some real conversation?
I am. Last week was filled of anecdote and personal opinion. This week it's cold hard facts, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the change, really, from 6.78 to 6.79. And obviously, a big patch is obviously going to bring a lot of changes. And like I said earlier, some of those are sort of really obvious. And then some of them just sort of slip in. And, we had 6.78, which lasted approximately 4.5 months. And now we're about 2 months in to 6.79 and kind of actually now have a decent amount of time to really take stock of what's changed. So, we took a couple of heroes to talk about tonight, and the first one is going to be the wonderful Dazzle. And, in 6.78, he had 41 games played and a 49% win rate. And now in 6.79, he has 50 games played and a 50% win rate. So not all that dramatic an increase in the win rate, but for less than half as much time has more games played in the last patch. And it's not that it's a huge dramatic, hundreds or thousands of games that some heroes have within the duration of a patch, but it's really nice to see Dazzle come out as sort of, a special pick for some teams. Some teams really like the Dazzle, and then just something that other teams will pick up sporadically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on him? And maybe just what were your thoughts on the changes that were made to him? I'll just go over them really quick. Yeah. 6.79, weave duration rescaled from 12, 18, 24 to 20 seconds at all levels. The armor per second was rescaled from 1 to 0.75 up to 1.25. Poison touch damage was increased at the lower levels to end up at the same amount on the last rank. And poison touch had its slow timings reworked. So basically, the thing that I think was most important to the change made to that spell is that previously the level 1 slowed for 1 second, and now it slows for 33% for 3 seconds, which obviously I think was a lot of strength to Dazzle's weakest part of the game.
Yeah, exactly. The early game when he's trying to help out in the laning phase, that slow was really difficult to really get great use out of it until you got up to the stun component. In the later ranks. Otherwise, like you said, it was pretty much just a worthless slow. It didn't really do a lot for very long. You compare that to other heroes in their early games. Some of them, like Vino, is level 1 Gale, obviously enormous slow for a very long duration. So, it was hard to kind of get him in the competitive scene for that reason, but now they've reworked it. He's actually got some decent laning presence. I mean, the healing's always been a nice factor, plus the Shallow Grave, of course, can always be a nice savior unexpectedly, but I think the poison touch and the early damage, as you added, it's not tons, it is there, and these differences definitely add up over time. It is also dodgeable, but there's not a lot of heroes that that really generally had too much to affect. I would say that really makes that much of a difference. But yeah, that's pretty cool. The weave difference. I think it's nice overall. I mean, making it 20 seconds makes it a longer duration for those first 2 ranks, which is really what you're trying to get out of it, is just a long, drawn-out time in which the enemy's either scared to push you or you're stronger in your push, because those are obviously the 2 times you're really using a weave very well, getting the most heroes hit possible. And the longer that's drawn out, the more time you have to either get your cooldowns off cooldown or your mech up or whatever you have. I think it's a really nice change.
Yeah, and I think just sort of to reiterate what the poison touch change did, really what the weave change did was bring an early game presence to Dazzle. If you ever saw Dazzle previously, you would wind up skipping the ultimate because, well, everything else just scales pretty well. And because, you're just not getting much duration out of it. I just really liked that it's sort of, like you're saying, it gives you this longevity that it didn't otherwise have. And adding the poison touch, it's really now this thing that you still kind of want to skill up over everything else, but I think the big part is just that Dazzle now sort of has an attractive ultimate, whereas before it's sort of like, yeah, we'll get it much later. And the other cool thing, and I'm almost surprised that I didn't get a chance to see it as much, was just with the presence of how important Midas was, seeing various supports pick it up, not seeing really any Dazzles going for it, because again, that's part of the awesome part about that item is you're getting the early levels out of it. When you have a really level-dependent hero, why not go for an item like that that's going to help get you to your strongest point even faster if you're, in a patch that really allows supports to get away with something like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Aghanim's myself, but it's an interesting concept. Honestly, I kind of almost forgot it was around, existed, just for the fact that I've literally never seen one built on that hero before. Despite it being actually pretty significant, the last rank there, it's an extra 10 armor swing for wherever you place it. So, I mean, that's a pretty nice, over time, of course, but still, I feel like that's actually kind of significant when you think about it, especially if it's a minus armor, really adding up that physical damage. And he's generally run on a physical damage lineup. You're probably going to get into something along those lines later in this segment, but yeah, that really combines well and synergizes well with what he does.
Yeah, the Aghanims is interesting. I meant to say Midas. I don't know if I said Aghanims.
Oh, well,
those are two
I took it to
different
Aghanims, so
that's okay. Yeah. There is a game that I sort of was looking at. I looked at a bunch of them because that was one of the things that when I was sort of looking at the stats, I look at Excel spreadsheets all day, so I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be great to look at Excel spreadsheets in my free time too? Looked across some of the games where Dazzle was picked up, and when I sort of saw the stat increase, like, oh man, there's a bunch more of these games. I wonder how much of it's going to be gimmicky Dazzle, like the Huskar, or, these heroes that are going to put themselves in danger. So, okay, yeah, Shallow Grave, great, makes sense. Not so much of that. I mean, a lot of the Dazzles really put behind really tanky heroes, but the lineup that Rox.Kis put together in OSG versus Rox.Kis from Slardar, because you got to get your money out of the tickets when you buy them, really put him in a lineup that was about sort of putting out a lot of damage. And that's something I think you don't necessarily think about a lot when you think about the Dazzle. He was run an Earthshaker, Dazzle, Clinks, Pugna, and Elder Titan lineup, which I think is just fantastic looking at straight up, because you have Elder Titan, you have Clinks, who's putting out a lot of physical damage, you have Pugna, who's putting out a lot of magical damage with the natural order, and then putting Dazzle on top of that, I mean, I think is a really nice choice. Obviously added a slow to the stun that Earthshaker was providing, and really helped amp up the damage of Clinks. They're against OSG, who wind up picking CM, Alchemist, Viper, Naga, and Mirana. I mean, what do you think about that lineup in general? How do you really like seeing Dazzle play, or what kind of lineup do you see him fitting best into?
Yeah, you said Titan. I mean, that right there just jumped out at me. Dazzle Titan. Generally, the way, and actually I've seen him play it, it's funny because it's going to relate eventually to what I talk about, but the Slardar, Dazzle Slardar lineups have been starting to become more of a popular trend in the safe lane, and it just makes perfect sense. He's got a great Slithering Crush, that AoE stun. You couple that, he's a melee hero, so the Shadow Wave's going to get that heal/damage component, and then the Poison Slow to set up these kind of kills. Amplified damage at level 6. Now you've got really nice minus armor, which was buffed in this recent patch. But like I said, I'll get there soon. That is my segment. So stop stealing it. Actually, I'm talking about it, so it's whatever. But yeah, like I said, he really does synergize with kind of a minus armory team, I feel like, because he's got the physical output from Shadow Wave. He's got the minus armor or plus armor, but generally you would love to use it offensively if you can, to really stack up that physical damage. And then you put a couple heroes, maybe like Vengeful or Slardar or Shadow Fiend or someone else, Natural Order from Titan even. Just get these defensive abilities down on the other team. You can really blow up people in a matter of seconds, and it really does show. So I'd really love to see him coupled up with heroes like that.
Yeah, and I guess just to piggyback off of that, in watching this game, there's a moment at about the 17-minute mark where Rox.Kis is actually pushing into the tier 2 tower top, and you got to see Naga Siren go to engage with her ultimate, and Dazzle's able to drop a weave right before it happens, and so everybody marches in under the cover of Naga Siren ult, but the weave is building up, and you wind up seeing that towards the end of the fight, Naga Siren's armor is reduced by half because of having been in it. And it's really, I think, we always talk about those small armor bonuses that are really nice out of Ring of Basilius, out of what you're getting from the mech heal. Obviously, this is an ultimate that really sort of pushes that a little bit harder and can really make a big difference. Almost like, when we first talked about Bane and what Brain Tap can do. It's not just the plus, it's not just the minus, it's the swing and really the difference that you're able to generate between the two teams.
Oh yeah, if you can get both enemies and allies in the same cast, I mean that's golden right there. But generally very difficult to accomplish, despite it actually being a far range and a decent radius. You know, you don't always have kind of like the Enigma ults, kind of things like that, where you're like, oh, I wish all 5 people would be grouped up right here. Not always the case, but still, you generally should be able to get enough benefit out of it. And it's on a relatively short cooldown on top of that, so really easy to keep using in every fight, more or less. And I was just kind of looking over this patch. It's not only 6.79, but over time, over the past couple patches, not huge, but he's been getting buffed. All his abilities slowly kind of creeping up there. So it's kind of interesting that this one way more significant, I would say, than the previous changes. But still, they've been all beneficial, like Childgrave being able to cast on magic immune allies, just for example. More bounces on the Shadow Wave. More range on the Shallow Grave early. Poison Touch cooldown reduced a couple seconds. I mean, this hero has been slowly creeping up there, and now I guess he's gotten enough of a push. Now, granted, not in every game by any means, but he is definitely, like you said, showing up a lot more often, and really showing his prowess with it.
Yeah, I have to say that my favorite one, just quickly glancing at the buffs, is 6.72C, where Poison Touch is no longer blocked by damage block items like Vanguard.
Why was it even doing that, is the question.
Physical damage?
That's rude.
That is really...
That's very rude.
That's very rude. It's very sad. Like, let him have that.
Oh my gosh. How embarrassing is it for me that I didn't even know Poison Touch was physical?
Everything's physical. Oh.
That's beautiful. That just makes it, my argument that much more valid. The fact that even Poison Touch is physical damage. I mean, he just really steps up in that. Now the Hand of Midas thing that you were actually talking about, not Oghanims, makes perfect sense, because, hey, you know, the Dazzle, we discussed that with Sheever, you know, totally not a troll build. If you get that on you, you stack up that minus armor, it really is something amazing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, you know, like I said earlier, you know, you get this increase in the win rate that's like 1%. But really, I mean, you think of a lot of the heroes that are super prevalent, you know, they might have a 53% win rate. And obviously, if a hero's getting like a huge swing of like 10% win rate, then maybe you've gone too far. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I really like that we have an even bigger sampling of games. And we will probably see a bigger sample over the course of this patch. And, you know, he's sort of exactly where you would expect a hero to be, really. 50%. Maybe even a little bit higher, a little lower, somewhere in that range, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like you said. That's pretty much where you want him. You don't want that too extreme win rate. So I believe I heard something, although I don't know how accurate it was. It was on a stream live today. Somehow Alchemist's win rate's gotten out of control. So I don't know anything about that, but I do hear that hero is jumping off, and you know it's funny because he's coming on the backs of these changes, but I guess they actually weren't nerfs like people first thought. They actually worked out to be buffs in his favor. But, yeah, no, I really like to see that. And this is a hero that's just fun to watch anyways. The Shallow Grave, one of the most annoying things possibly to deal with in the game. This hero living an extra few seconds can make all the difference in a fight.
I will say the thing that I found really interesting, you know, Rox.Kis is a team that really has picked Dazzle fairly consistently. And Go Black, drafting for that lineup for Rox.Kis. Also, as a fan of the Treant Protector, and seeing those two heroes together,
oh boy,
in a tri-lane, very interesting. I'm still, the jury's out in my book on how much I like it. It's very weird, and obviously that's really defensively minded. You know, seeing it a lot with Luna, actually. I'm really curious to see if Rox.Kis is able to keep that like a valid picking lineup, and that's kind of another thing. You know, when we were talking about other heroes, and sort of the beauty about the balance of Dota right now is that, you know, Rox.Kis, pretty good team. I don't think you can, you know, argue that they're an awful team, that they're like pub trash, blah blah blah. They have this really weird strategy. They have these two heroes that they go to more than other teams do,
yeah, and
they're able to get wins off of it, and that's pretty cool.
You know what combo I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen yet though?
What?
The Dazzle Huskar. No, he's CM.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, too. That, like I was saying earlier, that's kind of like what I enjoyed about looking over these stats. I'm like, it's not the Huskar. It's not the gimmick. I mean, the Slardar Dazzle isn't a gimmick. It's like, I don't know, I'd call it like a pub combo or something. Like, it just
they just synergize real well. They just do.
Yeah, that's just how you go, oh, it's me and my buddy duo queuing. Let's just ruin some kids. And so, yeah. But it really was just like I was saying, Treant Protector, Dazzle, Luna. Like, there's nothing super obvious about why that makes a ton of sense. It's just, you know, a neat lineup that they like to do. So very cool.
Yeah, I would like to see the Oscar Dazzle combo though. Just every now and then, not every game. Just show me that awesome sickness, you know, somewhere. Because obviously he thrives on being low on health. So if you can make him last another few seconds, by all means, that might be the difference in the fight for sure. But yeah, definitely cool.
So what about you? What could possibly be the hero that you wanted to talk about?
You know, I
Alchemist, is it Alchemist?
Oh God, I don't think I don't think he's unsung at all. I don't think he's unsung at all. But no, it'd actually be Mr. Slardar, the slithering. Well, he's not a slithering guard anymore. Actually, I don't believe. I believe he has lost that lore aspect of himself. Oh no, he is still a slithering guard. Well, I guess he still has that until Blizzard rains down on him. But for the meantime, yeah, he's definitely popped out quite a bit more on this patch, and I got a few mathy stats myself that I actually calculated by hand on a calculator.
On an abacus.
On an abacus, yes. It took like years because I didn't even know how to use one for a while, but it's all good. But actually, I even dug back to 6.77, and I just wanted to compare it across the board. So let's start there. 6.77, which lasted approximately 6 months. Pretty long duration. 13 games played, or 2 per month. Not your highest pick rate, you know, according to my statistics. But then 6.78 came along. It was roughly 4.5 months. And in that time, he was picked 27 times, or 6 per month. So went up an okay amount. Not dramatically. 27 in 4.5 months is still not great, but it's still picked. And then 6.79 in... well, let's see. It's roughly 2 months. He's been picked 63 times, or an average of 31.5 per month. So roughly 1 a day. Over a 500% increase in picks already. So it's a little dramatic, I would say. Now, obviously, there's still not nearly hitting the level of carries and other heroes that are just in all the scenes, but that's still a huge jump. But you know, I was looking at that, I'm like, well, maybe it's because his win rate's a lot better. Maybe he's getting picked, and because he's so much better, he's winning. Well, let's just say his record was 14-13 in 6.78. Now it is 28-35, so it's a losing record that he maintains instead of a winning one like he had in the previous patch. But that might even out over the course of some more games. I mean, you know, he's just kind of still getting picked. He's still kind of new to it. And it's pretty interesting in that he's got lower kill-death ratio, all those different things. But let's just talk about his changes really quick. In 6.79, his amplified damage armor reduction was increased in the lower levels. So instead of 8, 14, 20, it's now 10, 15, 20. So it's a couple extra minus armor in those first 2 ranks, which are kind of like you're saying with the Dazzle. That early game kind of gets stepped up a little bit. And his sprint. Now this is where the really nice changes come into play. The speed was increased from 20, 27, 33, 40 up to 20, 28, 36, 44. So it's roughly 3 or 4% extra in those up later ranks, which is really nice. And the mana cost of 50 removed completely. The only 2 spells now cost mana are Slithering, Crush, and his Amplified Damage. So that, you know, while you think, oh, 50 mana, that's not so bad, right? Huge change for this hero, honestly. The fact is, you at least most people skill build him, maxing out the Crush into Sprint. So Sprint is used quite often on this hero. Almost every time it's off cooldown. It's how he initiates, it's how he runs away, it's how he gets to place. And taking that 50 mana cost on a hero who has low intelligence, 15 with 1.5 mana gain per level. I mean, that's really low. And he is a strength hero, so that makes a lot of sense. But still, he's not going to get much in the mana department. And, you know, he doesn't gain a lot over time. So it's really nice to have that on this hero. And, you know, I think it's already made a world of a difference, allowing more crushes in the laning phase and not worrying about maintaining the amplified damage as much.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing to consider, too, is you look at what his starting mana is. It's 195. So, you know, obviously you're not going to have both Crush and Sprint at level 1, but obviously you're not going to get that much moving to level 2. So, I mean, 50 mana cost is pretty dramatic when your mana pool is that small. And
right.
It's almost like if you're able to bait out a Sprint, try to get him to Sprint Crush, and he can't do it, like that's a pretty huge chunk of his mana, and it might stop him from trying to go for that combination again. So like, yeah, perfect comparison to the Dazzle, and just that you're getting now just a little bit more early game viability, and especially because this is a skill that, okay, yeah, you're getting speed, but you're taking more damage too. So the fact that the cost now is really just the damage that you're potentially taking, I think is nice and certainly a lot fair. And I do like too that the ultimate was buffed a little bit. Obviously, Slardar's always been a great hero to try and help take down Roshan, but now it's just a little bit scarier even with that level 1, or even just what it can do in team fights. And I remember, like, I wish I could remember what patch it was that the like Darkseer Dragon Knight was like the best worst strategy ever, because there was like 10 kills in a game. But I remember seeing some games, and we even talked about some of them where it's like, oh, Slardar, yeah, what a great idea. He's this hero that can reduce the armor of Dragon Knight, who obviously has so much, and then can help rip through Darkseer. And now we have this increase to the armor reduction in the ultimate, when Dragon Knight is now sort of coming back again as being a very popular pick.
Yeah, exactly. He's definitely stepping up in his game, and his different placement, like we were talking about originally with the Dazzle, he's definitely played a good amount in that safe lane with the Dazzle or various other supports, but he's also been played middle, and that's going to lead me into my first game. I have two here, and it's kind of different looks at how he's been played, because like I said, he's not actually a winning hero this patch. He's actually got a losing record, but it's still not too far below 50%, so he's still doing a decent job. But the first game is LGD China versus Tong Fu. It's game 3 in the Ace WPC quarterfinals, in which Tong Fu decided to pick up the Slardar along with the Shadow Shaman, Shadow Demon, the Lina, and the Lifestealer. And LGD ran the Rubik, Clock, Doom, Weaver, and Bane. So Slardar, basically, he was dual laning with the Shadow Demon mid versus solo Clockwork. So, it looked like a pretty advantageous position, but Clock was able to maintain experience range. And Clock farm is not nearly as important as experience, so the fact that they weren't able to deny that really wasn't helping, and Slardar was not getting the levels that he really wanted, so he couldn't even rush up to that amplified damage, because Shadow Demon was there kind of sapping a lot of that, soaking up a lot of that experience. He was used generally to face off against that Clock and Doom, using that amplify to chew through armor, so Lifestealer can kind of get in there and do a lot of his damage. I could kind of understand the concept they were going for, but their lanes were really weakly drafted. The other lanes, like for example, Lifestealer with solo off lane, wasn't going to be the best thing ever. And he just wasn't able to, make enough plays that his presence was really well known. He went a bottle first, which makes sense, obviously, as a middle Slardar. And he's got good rune control with the sprint, don't get me wrong. But, he only ended up going the Treads, Magic Wand, and Vanguard, and eventually they lost, and it only took under 20 minutes. It was a pretty brutal defeat. But, I don't know. Do you think that a duo mid, something like that, could have its advantages?
I guess. I mean, obviously that Shadow Demon and Slardar makes sense in that lane specifically, because obviously Shadow Demon's sort of crowd control, or the thing that initiates it for Slardar, doesn't let the hero move at all, because he's going to disrupt them out. Slardar knows exactly where they're coming out. They don't get to move, and in a shorter lane, that's obviously pretty advantageous. And of course, if you can also do the Soul Catcher. I wanted to say Shadow Weave. I'm like, oh god, Dazzle, get
Wrong one.
Soul Catcher on top of that, that's a tremendous amount of damage to come out really quickly. Right. So I get like the sort of dominating idea, but I feel like Slardar also can really take advantage of the side lanes, because of just the ability to keep up with people as they are trying to run away. Right. When you're getting up in the levels and you're able to take bash, you can obviously get the RNG gods to bless you with kills as you land stuns as they run away. And I think that's a neat idea, because that's obviously not everybody's first thought, but I think that's kind of, unfortunately it didn't work out in that situation, but that's probably like the best lanes you're going to be able to wind up getting for that to sort of work. I guess you could do like a Bane or something.
I have 3 thoughts. First one, I forgot to mention about Dazzle. I think the other reason he's been picked up so much is because of his new haircut. I mean, ever since he went Super Saiyan, people are like, well, I have to pick him. I mean, where do you go wrong with that? Right?
Yeah, no.
Okay, that was thought number one. Anyways, thought number two, though. The sprint, I feel like you were saying, and I kind of agree, it doesn't feel like he's really taking advantage of that in the middle lane. I mean, yeah, sure, if you can get off to the side lanes and then pop that sprint, that's when it's really nice. But in the middle lane, it's so short that you don't really need the burst of speed as much. You really need to just do a lot of burst damage, and that's how you're going to kill heroes. Like when I play Tusk mid all the time, it's because I have burst damage, essentially. And while I do love the combination, it didn't actually work out that well for them, and the main reason for that is the cogs. Clockwork is a great counter to this hero. Before he gets his Blink Dagger, he really needs to be able to get right up in the person's face. And he had so much troubles because as soon as he went anywhere near the enemies trying to get in that crush, he'd pop a cog and get right in his way. And he'd get bounced back, mana stolen. And we were discussing his mana issues. He clearly has some. So if he gets hit once or twice by those cogs, he may only get one crush in a fight at the most. So actually Clockwork seemed to be a really nice anti-Slardar in this case and worked really well. Also, he can hook in onto Slardar if he sees him running in, stop him dead in his tracks, and then his team can just follow up and finish him off. So Slardar, one of those heroes that needs to be able to weave his way or slither his way in or out of the fight. And by Clockwork's literally like the definition of you're not going anywhere near my team.
Slither to the fight, Jay. We don't even have writers, and you came up with that.
I know, somehow by myself. And imagine the kind of content we could put out if only we had a paid position here.
I know, it'd be great. But the neat thing about sprint, or not the neat thing, but it's just like I guess the other drawback is it's like, yeah, you're just kind of going headlong, and like you're saying, that's a great opportunity for a hero like Clockwork to just be like, nope, you're done. Mm-hmm. Not gonna work. So it's like a really dramatic, obvious go to initiate. So yeah, that's a great way to try and stop that. And obviously, probably one of the harder counters you'd be able to find, especially in a melee hero to go up against the Slardar. But I think that's really interesting that that was attempted. And like you're saying, I certainly see where that makes a lot of sense going up against a Doom, a hero that has low armor anyway. So just
take
add
full
insult
advantage
to injury.
of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've gotten to play some truly sad games of Doom where the early pressure can really add up to bad times. And being able to just sort of take advantage of his weak armor stat early with the increased armor reduction in the ultimate is a good way to really try and shut down Doom from being able to get up a good number of items.
But not only did they have the clock, they also had Rubik, who is like a almost instant CC. And then they have Bane Elemental, who's almost like the master of lockdown himself. So they really had so many ways to deal with a Slardar running into their team. Like without a blink, which he wasn't able to obtain, he really had no way to get the jump on them. And that really hurt them throughout the game. Because you look at their lineup, Lina, Shadow Demon, Shadow Shaman, Lifestealer. They're going to have issues going in on this team. They really needed them otherwise. So, I think LGD just really played well against that lineup and outdrafted them in that regard. And the fact that they weren't able to shut down a Clockwork middle was kind of just the icing on the cake. But
yeah, I mean the clock mid thing is nice. Like you only get to see it every once in a while, and it always seems to be like a response thing. So I'm curious as to when those two heroes were picked up in reference to one another. Because obviously, I think if you can just go, we can afford to run clock middle. We can put who we would have wanted to run middle somewhere else, or we don't even have to worry about trying to pick up a mid hero late because we can just stick Clockwork there. Mm-hmm. So it's really like unfortunate that he is such a great hero in general, and then is a really strong counter to the Slardar.
Yep, Clock is trunk, but he's been that way for many a year. So nothing new there, I'm afraid. But the second game, kind of on the opposite end here of the spectrum. Well, not quite opposite, but still, it was Fnatic.EU versus EG, which is Game 2 of the D2L Season 4 group stage, which, by the way, I know it's Tuesday, and when you listen to this, it's actually not going to be live, but it is live for us right now, and we are taking the time, instead of watching these live finals, to have this podcast for you. So just another, just showing of our appreciation to you guys. We are not halting ourselves watching these games, but you guys should definitely tune in them. And the other reason, kind of a little hint, you should watch them because we are going to be discussing them sometime in the future. So.
And if they're awful games, then J4Y is just going to make us have one painful cast.
It's going to be awful, possible. But I already know after watching one game that there was a pick I already want to talk about. So, anyways, that's off topic. I'm just saying, you guys should. There's your homework assignment. Watch those finals. Anyways, try to get back on topic. Fnatic.EU, like I said, so this is for their group stage game. EG ran Nature's Prophet, Crystal Maiden, Lich, Anti-Mage, and Night Stalker. And then they were against Fnatic, who had the Venomancer, Invoker, Wind Ranger, excuse me. I always correct you all the time. Weaver, and Slardar. And Slardar was duo top, actually, with Veno. And he was against Night Stalker and Crystal Maiden. They were going hard lane, so they weren't even in their own safe lane. And they went with, and like I said, he was with Venomancer, who, kind of like the Dazzle, similar position. Really deadly slow. Couple that up with a nice crush, and you get some really nice damage put in. And middle, it was like Invoker and Wind Ranger. Wow, I'm having so many issues with that already. Versus a Lich AM. So it's another melee middle kind of thing, where they're trying to get this farming hero middle, which is, I guess, starting to make kind of a little comeback in the scene every now and then, I guess, depending on the situation. But, yeah, Merlini actually made a comment early in the match, and it was about Slardar, and he said, yeah, he synergizes well with other Midas armor, which obviously, not saying I said it first, but actually I definitely didn't, but that's okay. But he's not great at farming, because obviously he only has that one AoE, not the greatest last hitter. And since their team didn't really have a lot of Midas armor synergy, he's like, I guess they're going to have to do a lot of early action to really take full advantage of this Slardar. And it made me think, because normally, you know, we kind of discussed about the gimmicky thing, about, oh yeah, let's stack up Midas armor, or let's do something silly and try to win that way. You know, like Shadow Fiend, vengeful Slardar team, and let's just make them minus 30 armor and kill them in one hit. This lineup obviously had nothing to do with that. You know, you could say, oh, Invoker with the Forged Spirits has minus armor a little bit, but no, not really. The truth of it is, they just wanted him in their lineup for their initiation. And, really actually ended up being pretty amazing. He really got his treads, the Vanguard. I mean, I'm telling you, these builds are pretty much always the same with this Slardar, which is pretty interesting to note. And then eventually he got enough gold where he got his blink. And after that blink, the game just went completely in their favor, because he was able to get the jump like every Slardar wants to do, stun, amplify, and just make the team go completely in your favor. And Weaver actually ended up getting a Desolator, of course, later. So there's the stacking of the Midas armor that really started to ramp up quickly with the layer level Slardar was getting with his up to minus 20 armor. And, you know, despite being against an anti-mage late game, they actually were still able to pull it off just because of how much damage they could put out with Slardar's combination of amplified damage and crush and getting that jump on them.
Well, the other thing, too, that I find really interesting about that lineup is you're going up against a Night Stalker, too.
Right.
And that is sort of like more along the lines of the Dragon Knight conversation of here's a hero that just naturally has a bunch of armor to start. Obviously, with the change to nighttime, you're not getting... you probably won't have your ultimate by the time first night hits, unless you're Superman somehow getting experience falling from the sky like manna from heaven. But you figure maybe by the second nighttime, right, you're 6. Night Stalker might be 6. Come on, man, bring it on. Let's go. Like, if you're able to sort of have that ultimate to go up against Night Stalker, where he obviously needs to get an early advantage, you know, being one of these snowbally heroes, he has that high early armor to help him through those first couple night times, help him build that advantage. If you're able to just be like, nope, obviously that's going to be a big impact into the game and is a nice little counter to the Night Stalker. Obviously, you don't want to necessarily silence a Slardar, so I think a really just smart draft. And yeah, like you're saying, I mean, Anti-Mage, that's a hero that has always needed to be bursted down quickly. If you're going to win the game against him, you got to you know, take advantage of the time that you're holding him still. So, really nice all around, I think. Yeah. Interesting, though, that they are also against the Lich, though, which is kind of a neat way to almost counterbalance that.
Right, and actually the Slardar and Night Stalker were both the last picks of this game. So Slardar kind of looking over their lineup and saying, what do we need to really persevere and push through to beat this anti-mage late game? And Slardar was the, I guess, end result of that train of thought. Now, Night Stalker, Merlini was questioning that pickup quite a bit, actually, throughout like the entire game. Because you looked at their lineup, they had, like we were saying, the anti-mage and the Nature's Prophet. So you think right away, split push. Anti-mage late game, if he can get there, is going to be marching down one lane by himself, cleaving, clearing, doing tons of damage, and then can always escape usually on his own. Nature's Prophet, the same thing in the side lane. So they're going to have two lanes pushing simultaneously. So the other three, what are they going to do? Essentially try to defend their best against a push, right? Because they're most likely not going to be 5-man doting with Nature's Prophet on this team. Night Stalker's horrible against push. He really brings almost nothing to the table. He has a decent range nuke/slow, and I guess you can limit vision, but when you're pushing as a 5-man, the vision thing doesn't matter as much because you're all grouped up anyways. So he was like, I'd much rather have some other kind of hero instead of Night Stalker in this lineup because he really didn't bring much to the table. So you can say for both games it's not like all because of one thing or the other, but there are factors always, of course, that play into it. But that Frost Armor was almost minimal, against these two. Just for the fact that with the Desolator Amplify late game, it was absurd. It was 2 or 3 shotting every support they saw. Nature's Prophet actually went Shadowblade that game, despite knowing he's against a Slardar. And at times was useful, but there was also plenty of times where if he got that jump and stun, the amplified damage would come right up and he wouldn't be able to escape. So it was really just a strong pick, and throughout the entire game, really did a dominating performance.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I mean, that's, I think, something you like to see too. I mean, maybe not necessarily with the Night Stalker, because obviously, like we said, okay, it makes sense, rip through the armor. Anyway, it's not like he's a super hard counter to any of these heroes. There aren't, like 4 Invis heroes on the other team. So let's pick Slardar, the way it always seems to happen in all pick, right? Really just taking advantage of the early aggression that hero can put out. I don't know how important Roshan was to those games, but obviously that's something that Sardar's kit really helps make a focal point of the game and really can help your team get that advantage. So, again, even with talking about Dazzle, it's not relying on sort of the gimmick of the hero, but really just like this hero fits different situations now. That's really cool.
Yep.
So how about number 3? You think?
I think I'm ready.
Think you're ready? All right. Invoker. A hero that I think, obviously you say Invoker, I think the first thing that should come to your head is probably Hani.
Ice. Ooh. I guess not.
That is an interesting thing, though, because, when I was looking at the Dazzle games, I'm like, oh, it's interesting that Dazzle's mostly popping up in the West. Invoker really is a hero that sort of shows up East versus West, and the builds don't vary all that dramatically, really. The skilling, it's still pretty much the Quas Exort, despite the fact that EMP sort of got a nice little buff to it to help with the mana issues on Invoker. But you look at 6.78, you have 47 games played at a 51% win rate, and at 6.79, 194 games at a 54% win rate.
Whoops.
So a couple jumps in the win rate, and obviously a huge spike in the number of games played. Have a couple different games to talk about with that, both with Fnatic, because I'm a fan of the Hani Invoker.
Apparently.
Maybe a
Western
Hani fan,
boy.
I don't know. I like it. The first one was Fnatic versus Rox.Kis, where we actually get to see the duo that I was talking about earlier. Actually, the trio. You have Rox.Kis that pick OD, Luna, Timbersaw, Dazzle, and Treant Protector against Fnatic's Io, CM, Invoker, Tiny, and Darkseer. So you get to see sort of the flair of Fnatic, really, both of their sort of signatures, the IO +1 combination, as well as the Invoker for Hani. But, you look at what buffs were given to Invoker, and you really see a lot of potential for this hero to make a much bigger impact in the game, unlike maybe before, particularly to his early game. Yeah, the EMP restores Invoker for 50% of the mana it drains from heroes, but also that the max spells on Invoke go from 1 to 2 just 2. And that was something that really stood out, not only in this Fnatic versus Rox.Kis game, but in a Verse Pro versus Fnatic, again, both from Starladder. That really just the availability for Hani to have Cold Snap +1 ready really had a sizable impact in the game and really let him be more than just a hero that would come out later with an arsenal of spells.
Yeah, I was actually I I was listening to an Eastern game. That's why I'm thinking of Ice 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 so much. But one of the commentators was saying, noticing how he didn't level Invoke at level when he had the ability to, his second rank in it, and he was like, yeah, no, now that you don't need that second point to get the second Invoke, a lot of people are just skipping it, and it's made a world of a difference because, that, like you're saying, they can get the two spells as early as level 2. Well, as early as level 3, I should say, because they have to get at least 2 different instances. But still, the fact is you can build multiple spells within that early range, and it's made a world of a difference. Like you're saying, the EMP restore, it definitely can be really nice, especially to sustain your late game pushes, but really, I think the large amount of change came from that Invoke rescaling, because now they can do different builds. They don't have to get that second level Invoke as early if they don't want, so they can make their spells that much more potent in the mid game. As early as one more point can make a world of a difference. For example, on the Forge Spirit, if you get level 4 on your export that much quicker, you're going to get that second Spirit up and running, and really can change the outcome of a fight or a push that much more just for having that extra point invested that way. So yeah, I absolutely think these were, despite not looking like big changes, have obviously the players who've always loved to play these heroes, it's made a world of a difference for them.
Yeah, and just when you brought up Forge Spirit, I mean, that's sort of the other part of the Quas Exort build I feel like is really strong. I got to see a lot of in these games. You see this transition from Forge Spirit to Sunstrike to obviously try and get kills to help other parts of the board. But being able to actually really take advantage of the early Forge Spirits impressed me a lot. In the first game, Fnatic versus Rox.Kis, you're looking at an Invoker versus an OD. And OD is going to Astral you, and LOL, try to let some last hits on creeps. But you have a Forge Spirit out, you can at least punish him a little bit for trying to stand up on the creeps and getting in range of being able to Astral you. And just being able to take advantage of that spell even really early, I feel like is really nice. Using it to last hit and deny at the same time. If your attack timer isn't working out so that you can hit both yourself, actually getting to see Hani show some moves. Very simple thing to overlook, but denying one creep and killing another. It was really nice. And, Fnatic do a great job in this game. They use CM to actually help secure Invoker's position in the middle of the game. But, the really great thing I think about the Hani Invoker specifically, and really just how Invoker is just built in general, is you get to see this crazy Scotty item that you normally don't get to see elsewhere. And of course the bots really being the first sort of major item pickup, which is obviously not a common thing on anybody but Tinker.
Does it do Hanamitis too?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've got
to get that. I mean, sorry, that should have been just common knowledge at this point.
No XJ, where are you going to get the attack speed? Come on.
Very true. Screw that. Yeah, it's a little sad. The days of Quaswex are completely gone, more or less. But I mean, just getting the global positioning on Sunstrike just makes such a world of a difference. Plus the Forge Spirit, like we talked about. If you can actually micro the two creatures, which obviously these players can, makes a world of difference. And last hitting all around, obviously, just a really strong way to level up the hero. So I think it's going to remain Quas Exort for the unforeseeable future. Or unforeseeable future, excuse me. But, yeah, obviously, Hani's been one of those that have just loved this hero to death and played him to his full potential. Ice 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 plays him such a different way, though, which is, well, not completely. Not necessarily the hero, but laning-wise, not the middle, generally. The fact that he gets to get the safe lane, more or less, very often, or even sometimes off lane, is just interesting to see that he's still that much power, or has that much power behind him, even if he's not in that middle controlling the game.
I think the thing that's really neat about just, even if you say, yeah, you're going Midas, you're trying to get items up, and yeah, eventually go for the Scotty, I think it's just really cool that, you're prioritizing these boots of travel and you can sort of ignore your other stat items or ignore going for the sheep right away. I mean, I think it just tells you a lot about the hero. Even when you are building the Quas Exort, you're getting an item that gives you the ability to go around other parts of the map very quickly to help put out your presence, make it known, is really interesting. And just the fact that you don't necessarily have to rely on the items. This hero can sort of get away with not having to get something to give him sort of mid-early game presence. Can really just rely on that kit, that more versatile kit now with 2 spells. And the other thing that I really do like about just being able to take advantage of the Forge Spirits, not just being like, Sunstrike and Cold Snap is really what Forge Spirits and Cold Snap can do together, giving you extra instances of the stun, which I think is a lot of fun.
And the Midas Armor. I mean, you're hitting like a truck. Those Forge Spirits are sometimes vastly underrated, but they really can, not only for pushing, but also for the extra damage added for you and your team. Yeah, definitely make a world of a difference. When you get 2, it's like night and day. It's such a dramatic difference. Now, granted, you do need, like I said, both 4 in the Quas and Exhort, which is why people like to just rush those points instead of more Invokes, but definitely a strong combination there, like you're saying.
The thing that I also found really interesting, and I forgot to sort of look at this when I was looking through other players, but especially just noticing on Lahani the fact that he likes that Ring of Basilius to try and make up for not getting, the drums, which used to be pretty common, or, when he's trying to go for maybe the Sheep Stick, being able to pick up one of the cheaper items to help deal with the weak amount of mana regeneration, or weak mana pool, the high cost of the spells. It was really interesting to me, and not something I necessarily expected to see. But again, going with the Forge Spirits, it's actually kind of interesting because, like you're saying, you get the 2 up, and it makes a world of difference. Not only the amount of damage you can do, but really where you can put them. And that's something that I saw in the Virtus Pro versus Fnatic game. You actually see that almost solo, Hani kills Roshan. Microing the minions has a little bit of help from some Visage birds, but really, for the most part, able to take down Roshan on his own, which is really impressive because, it was something that I believe Zyori was saying in the game. He was casting it, not one of these heroes that you necessarily think of as being an early Roche threat. No. Obviously, the Ursa, Slardar even. The fact that you can just sort of run your Invoker into the pit and it's not a big deal is pretty interesting.
You give him some minions to tank for him, and he's going to dish out plenty of damage with his Forge Spirits and his other abilities. So, definitely another great... put him with, like I said, Slardar. Get some real amp damage going for that physical component. But he really does synergize with pretty much a lot of heroes that just have some way to keep someone in place. I mean, like you said, the Sunstrike. I mean, I think that's why a lot of teams, especially DK, for example, like to run the Alchemist support with the Invoker in their lineup, just because you get that really long stun with the concoction, and sets that easily up for the Invoker to just land that Sunstrike for a huge burst of damage from just those 2 spells alone. Not even to mention other people in the lane. So, I think he's. It makes a lot of sense. He's back in the game, and it was sad to see him away for so long, but because he's obviously one of the most interesting heroes in the game, having the biggest arsenal of spells to access. It's really interesting to see people at high levels playing this hero.
Yeah. I had some other notes from the Virtus Pro versus Fnatic game. Virtus Pro wound up picking the Bristleback, Alchemist, Dazzle, Weaver, Disruptor. Fnatic wound up going for Elder Titan, Visage, Enigma, Luna, and Invoker. And it was both of these games were actually kind of slow paced, and I really would like to get see more games where the Invoker sort of put under more pressure early on and see how he can handle it, how he can contribute, because really you have Cold Snap and that's great and all, and Sunstrike, but what happens if your back's against the wall and now you're this build that really doesn't give you a ton of AoE viability? I guess you could say you got the Chaos Meteor, but what happens when you're really not able to take advantage of the Sunstrike? You're not able to, sort of have man fights with people, and you have your Forge Spirits. And that was something actually interesting about this game. You look at about the 30-minute mark, and Weaver and Invoker have a man fight. They have almost the same amount of creep kills. Invoker was more successful in the team fights, but really just able to handily take him, of course with the help of some Scotty. But, still the fact that you have a hero that can just sort of go toe-to-toe with Weaver, pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Weaver, one of those really annoying heroes to deal with, just for the fact that he gets the max move speed as early as level 1 and able to harass and do that double hit. I mean, he's so good at coming in and out of fights that it's impressive one hero cannot. I was just trying to think of a witty way of saying Enigma plus Meatball, but it just didn't come together because a lot of people call that meteor a meatball. I don't really know why yet, but I guess it's reddish and it's a ball. It's
just very weird visual to me, and I just can't handle it.
Is there gonna be like a pasta Invoker skin coming up here, like a some kind of chef?
Just little spaghetti monster Forge Spirits.
Well, they did have the Ice skin, which is actually pretty badass. I have to say, have seen in action. I think its Forge Spirits are even different visual effects, which is so cool seeing those things. But yeah, maybe that one's for the books. Maybe we'll be a little more work on the Pasta Invoker skin. But but either way, yeah, the Meatball Enigma combination could be deadly. I mean, obviously as the Exort, you get that huge burst of damage coming out from the Chaos Meteor. So yeah, I could see it all coming together. Perhaps, he works well with other people, and maybe not as much the Sunstrike in that case, like we were saying, but he's got plenty of AOE to dish out for something like that, so it works out.
That's true. The thing I thought was interesting, he winds up being against a solo mid Alchemist, and Alchemist holds his own pretty well early on. I was surprised, and really just under the cover of Acid Spray, able to sort of try and keep Invoker out of creep range, being able to use it to farm himself a little bit. And really, it was the Forge Spirits that really helped him hold his own in that lane. And not only that, at about the 10-minute mark, Honey, even being in the middle lane, I believe, sends his Forge Spirits to the top tower, puts them behind the Radiant Tier 1 top to pull the creeps so that they could kill the tower very early, very easily. So, a finesse move, but one that really isn't like something that's super hardcore, micro intense, something that's actually pretty easy to do and helped made a big impact and really helped Fnatic roll their way to victory. So, which of these heroes are you maybe like happiest to see?
I guess as a viewer of professional games, I would have to say Invoker, just because of all the things that he brings to a table. Like I said, the most diverse kit, period, has all these spells to call on. But, honestly, all three are pretty interesting. And Dazzle's, I do not like playing against the Dazzle, but I like watching him in competitive action because I think he brings so much to the table for pushes and for just all around a great support. Slardar has been in a lot of boring games too, unfortunately. A lot of kind of farm fest, like we were saying, where he's not necessarily that impressive, not nearly as impressive as like a Sunstrike coming in from across the distance or something. So I definitely would say I like seeing Invoker of the three the most. But all three, it's great to see them back on the scene, I would say, after kind of being MIA for a while.
Yeah. I don't know who I would say is my favorite. I mean, I definitely do enjoy the Invoker. I wish we could have a nice balance of the Quas Wex or the
that'd be cool.
Quas Exort. Obviously that's a delicate balancing act to perform. But it would be nice to get to see more of the Quas Wex. But Dazzle is just like neat. I gotta say I do enjoy the Dazzle, so I definitely enjoy seeing him. And again, just to go back to like what Rox.Kis are doing, it's neat to see him sort of be the integral part of one team's core and be this sort of like side hero almost, not part of the main goings on. But we do this cast every week. We try to help each other out. We like to talk about what we're going to do ahead of time so we can plan, so we can sound intelligent. But it's also really fun to catch you off guard and see if you can say something stupid. Uh-oh. So for the second part of this little Unsung Heroes of 6.79, have sort of the nightmares of 6.79. Actually, it's sort of balanced. I picked two heroes. I'm like, man, both of these heroes are actually going to have wound up having a dramatic fall off because of some of the changes made to them, and the changes really even aren't that big of a deal. Namely the Darkseer and the Rubik. And when you look at Darkseer in 6.78, you see that he had 966 games.
Wow.
And really only a 45% win rate. So not that high, but still a favorite for teams to
I think that's pretty good for that many picks. Yeah.
It's a number. 6.79 has 132 picks.
Whoops.
And a 36% win rate.
Whoops.
The only change that happened to him in 6.79 is the increase to the cooldown on vacuum, which went up another 4 seconds. And this is a change that really they've been implementing quite often to this hero, increasing the cooldown on the vacuum to try and make him a less attractive pick. I guess two things, Jay. Thoughts? And, I guess maybe a 36% win rate is enough of an answer, but too far, you think?
That's really dramatic. I mean, still that many picks is not horrible when you look around. I mean, that's still pretty up there with a lot of the other heroes. Yeah, definitely not like every game like apparently he was in the previous patch, but he's still very popular, and I don't think it has anything really to do with the vacuum nerf. I mean, sure, that hurts in the long run, but I think a lot of it comes down to how the pushing meta is developed, particularly with Pugna if he gets in the game, because the whole thing with Wall is you're trying to clone these heroes that are going to be great auto attackers, and it's really going to F them up. And when you're cloning heroes like Pugna and the Shrek or other heroes that aren't necessarily great auto attackers, but they're still great pushers in different ways, you're not really getting that much benefit out of the Darkseer at that point. The Ion Shell, obviously, great for farming. He's always going to be an amazing farming hero, but it comes down to him being in a team fight and what he brings to that. And if Vacuum's now this longer cooldown, if Iron Shell, maybe you don't have a melee hero that you want to put it on anymore, there's obviously his kit's just not being as useful as it once was. And I don't know. I think he's still a wonderful hero that can bring plenty to the table. But obviously these other offlaners these teams are going with, like the Clockwork, like Slark, even like Elder Titan, these other heroes that just, I guess, bring more to the team fight that these teams want than he used to.
Yeah, I'm actually just sort of coming to terms with really how much that vacuum has been targeted. If you look at 6.75, the vacuum cooldown was increased from 16 to 19, and now in 6.79, increased from 24 to 28. So it's almost doubled the cooldown reduction. In 6.75 it was increased, in 7.6 it was increased, in 7.8 it was increased, now again in 7.9. Yeah, I mean, I think you can certainly chalk some of that up to the change in meta and the change in picks, but man, 36%. When's the last time you've seen a hero, maybe I guess like Naga Siren when she got her big nerfs after TI2, just like fell off the table, fell off the edge of the world. Until we were like, oh yeah, I guess we can try and use her as a support and see how good Riptide is. Yeah. I'm curious. I don't actually know what his win rate is off the top of my head. Maybe that's something I can look up off the side. But the other hero that I was sort of expecting to see more of a drop off with was actually Rubik, who in 6.78 was picked 1,039 times and had a 50% win rate. Really nice. He went under a similar nerf, having the increase in telekinesis increased from one number to another as I look for it, 18 to 22. Obviously, still a fairly short cooldown, but remember when we were talking about Na'Vi having sort of come just into 6.79 patch? That was actually something that Kuroki was sort of worried about. He's like, yeah, I don't even know if I think Rubik is anywhere near as strong as he used to be. Kuroki, sort of like one of the trademark Rubiks. Goes, yeah, I just I don't know how I feel about him. He did get the sort of the Aghanims upgrade where it reduces the cooldown to a hilarious 5 seconds. But how effective was that cooldown nerfing him? And he actually winds up going 471 wins, so really on par to do as good or better in the same amount of time that 6.78 was around, but goes up a little bit, 51% win rate. So interesting that these heroes sort of go through the same thing, but wind up in sort of vastly different effects.
Yeah, the Aghanims obviously clearly not really affecting him in pro scene because he's always used as a support, not a mid hero. So the odds of seeing an Aghanims Rubik in a pro game is less than 1%, probably, honestly, especially at this rate. It's just not in the cards for him. Despite it being really nice, like you said, 5 seconds is hilarious. That's so short, and the range gets increased to 1400s that he can steal spells, so ludicrous. But right, the main factor, of course, 4 extra seconds on telekinesis makes a world of a difference since it's such a great crowd control, which is what I was saying earlier about the one lineup that he was used in. It's almost an instant crowd control, and the fact that you get to relocate them somewhere either close to your team or stunning enemy teammates, even up on cliffs, which I actually saw in one of the Slardar games I watched today. Just the fact that it's an amazing CC, and I think this nerf really makes a lot of sense. But apparently, like you said, not changing dramatically how the win rate's coming out for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at like the big difference between those two heroes, obviously, Vacuum Wall has to kind of happen, and you'd obviously see TI2 days where you use the Naga Siren ultimate to set it up to make sure you're getting the maximum grab and wall combination off. Rubik doesn't need anything like that. Even if you say telekinesis sucks, he still has Fade Bolt, pretty decent nuke there, and you still have the ultimate, which is obviously going to be based on the skill of the particular player as well as what's on the table. So that's why I almost feel like the vacuum thing might be sort of like really maybe too dramatic, and maybe you have to look at buffing him even in other areas if you want vacuum to be on a really long cooldown, because that's a spell where if you mess it up, then your likelihood of being useful in a team fight is really affected dramatically, and now you don't really have any way of trying to pull it back from the brink if it's on that long of a cooldown. Even the new telekinesis, I mean, you might be able to still use it twice in a team fight. Not so much for vacuum.
Where's the Skywrath mage in all of this? Where's
BLM's picking him.
I know BLM is. I think the only team
BLM
that
is
really
rolling
runs
kids.
him besides you is Alliance, like Aki playing on him. I don't know that many other teams honestly run this hero, and maybe he'll eventually come up big for someone, but because I don't know. I guess our games are a little different than pro games in some tiny capacity, but he's got just so much potential. I don't know. I feel like he could make a presence, but apparently not enough for teams to want to value him.
I have gotten to see some Aghanim's Bloodstone games, which are hilarious on the Skywrath Mage. They are the bee's knees.
That's insane farm. That game's out of hand at that point.
Maybe slightly. Well, you got to go the Midas first. That's how you get the farm up, of course.
Oh yeah, you got to go the Midas so you have 0-second Mystic flares.
Making it rain, Mystic.
I want to try it in a
flares.
bot game. Got to do it one time here.
Oh, it's great. I've done it. It's amazing. You should totally give it a go. Anybody out there, it's really good.
First game after my 25 Tusk. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, you should totally do that.
Mid Skywrath, we'll do it.
Actually, the answer to the Batrider question is a loss of 2% win rate.
Not bad, considering the
51,
pretty
49.
big nerf he got. So
Yeah.
It's because it was just nerfed his early game, but the fact is he's kind of clockwork in the sense that farm is very useful. Don't get me wrong, but he can always, he's still got his Firefly. He's still got his ways to farm the jungle if he needs to get money for his Blink and his Force Staff. So I mean, yeah, last thing in the lane's gonna be a bit of a challenge, but a lot of the ways he's played is not necessarily mid, but that jungle or that kind of off lane to allow him to get those creeps. So I think the nerfs weren't nearly as devastating as like a Naga Siren was to her.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's pretty good, man. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. Great topic. Oh, good job, BLM. Come up with winning topics. I tweeted it earlier, maybe a little late, but I'm really curious to see who you guys think are just like these sort of sneak-in heroes that you really didn't get to see much of before, who are a lot more prevalent now, but still not like the core of the meta. Go ahead and let us know. Stop by our Facebook.com/DodaOnDemand. You can tweet at either of us at BDLM Dota and at whoever Jay is.
Dota on Demand. Just at Dota on Demand.
Oh, he's just at Dota on Demand. Oh, all right. And then, of course, you can also go to our YouTube channel and leave comments. We love reading those. And you can download us on the Stitcher. Do you have any other closing
and
thoughts?
iTunes. You never say iTunes. But
iTunes.
That's where we started, actually. So
I just hate apples. Not the company, the fruit.
Yeah, it's nasty to bite into one of those sometimes.
The pie is so good. Anyway, so go out there, guys. Watch some of the finals coming up and some of the competitive games. Mm-hmm. Who knows? It might be something we talk about in the near future. Go out there, play, watch, enjoy. We'll see you guys next week.